Welcome back. My name is Chris. I teach French at OuiCommunicate, and in this video I'd like to talk about Duolingo for a bit. A lot's been said about Duolingo, and it can come across as beating a dead horse. It's a topic that's been spoken about to the extreme, and yet I still find it relevant. Almost every day I speak to a learner who's used them, who is currently still using them, and almost every day there's someone somewhere on the planet who decides to get into language learning and goes on page 1 of the paid results of Google and makes their choice between the options that are available. And I realized through my conversations with students that language learning isn't a thing that most people think about. They can't really build knowledge about it, and I think that you'd have to learn 4 or 5 languages within a very, very short lapse of time before you can say, okay, well, this is how it works. Taking myself as an example, I learnt French and English at a certain age and in certain conditions. 10 years later, I started to learn Dutch at a different age, obviously, in different conditions, and then 20 years later came German. But because these 4 languages were done in different conditions and at different ages, it didn't enable me to use these 4 and develop a method from my experience learning them. So I couldn't generalize a set of principles. These experiences couldn't be compared. And I'm saying this why? Because even I, as a knower of 4 languages, as a learner of 4 languages, I still found my way to Duolingo. So if even I can do this, me, a person who's relatively involved in languages, well, there are very high chances that a person with no experience whatsoever is even much more lost than I was when they're facing language learning, and for good reason. Why would you know about it? There's a very good reason you don't know about language learning if you've never done it. I mean, why would you know about it? When I first heard of Duolingo, I didn't think much of them, and my feelings were rather positive. This would have been around 2020 perhaps. And I remember trying them for the Danish language, and though I was already a qualified language teacher at the time, I rather saw them as something unrelated to my own activity. So I didn't see any what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't see any harm in it. I saw it as something completely unrelated to my own activities as a teacher, and I think it was a situation of peaceful cohabitation, you could call it. I was over here, they were over there doing their thing, and it was 2 different things entirely. You could say I didn't have really any opinion about Duolingo. They were just a commodity. You know, I didn't have any emotions, either negative or positive, or rather positive really, but I didn't, it would have been like getting angry at restaurants on the high street. It's just a commodity. They're there, accept them. There's nothing to say about them. And as I said, I actually used them for a period of 6 months to learn Danish. And I thought, well, why not? They're there. They're free, it doesn't do any harm, and I thought, well, I'll at least get something out of it, how bad could it be? Well, 6 months later, and countless repetitions of the cow and the spider eat the strawberry, or women don't eat bread, and such like sentences, I stopped using them. There were too many variants of the same sentences, of the same words. I thought it was the same 20 words that were being rearranged too many times, and so I stopped. It just fizzled out after a period of 6 months. The experience in itself was rather positive, even looking back and not learning Danish, and I rationalized that, well, it's fun. It keeps me engaged. It's a handy way to stay engaged with a language. And I thought at the time, well, all of this is sure to compound into something bigger. If I keep all these added efforts, will probably lead to something at the end. So I kept using Duolingo. As I look back years later on my experience learning Danish with Duolingo, I'd say I feel a bit bewildered, is the word I'd use, bewildered. It reminds me a bit of the sleight of hand game. I thought the ball was over there under that cup, but it's over here. I'm thinking, what did they just do, and how did they do it? That's my impression of Duolingo. How can they be that much more clever than I am? And it's almost genius level clever, and I'll explain myself in this video, which is why, incidentally, I don't dislike them anymore. The first thing is trust. We usually buy services or products from people we trust. And I'm thinking, how did I step into this and give them my trust for a period of 6 months, even though the sentences I was translating were the cow and the strawberry like potatoes? And you have to know, I already had a master's in languages. I was already a qualified language teaching. You know, I had a master's in bloody linguistics. I'm thinking, how did this thing even happen? How did the trust element become a thing? And when I picked apart what I had done, some more questions came to me. You know, when you start learning a foreign language, you trust that you're being taken to a destination by someone who knows what they're doing. So subconsciously, I must have thought that the words strawberry, spider, cow, and wife were particularly relevant to the Danish language. But I didn't rationalize this. And I must have thought, well, perhaps it's a very clever technique to mix humor and teaching so that the words enter your mind without too much effort. And the absolute beauty of it is that these sentences were absolutely random. The absurdity of it all was hiding in plain sight. The absurdity was hiding in plain sight. The Danish word for strawberry didn't have any particular reason for being due to its pronunciation. Duolingo just happened to use the word strawberry because it seemed as good as any other word when they built these random Danish sentences. And I'll repeat it once more. The absurdity of Duolingo was hiding in plain sight, and I still gave them my trust. You have to consider this. You have to let this sentence resonate. When I mentioned the sleight of hand comparison, this is exactly what I meant. Here I was, giving 6 months of my life, repeating sentences about strawberry, spiders and cows for no purpose. And as much as I wish to rewind it in slow motion and see what I'd exactly done to understand what happened, it still moves too fast for me. It's absolutely brilliant. And I entitled this video, I used to hate Duolingo, but I don't hate them anymore. I don't dislike them anymore, which is a bit of a passive-aggressive statement, but it's also partly true. It's passive-aggressive, but it is partly true. Duolingo are anything but fools. They are very, very, very clever people. They are unusually clever, is what I believe. And I'm quite sure they know human behavior and human psychology on the level of university professors. From a business perspective alone, you can't not admire them. You can't not say they're number one. The way they've established themselves as synonymous with online language learning and position themselves as number one in that field, it's a very, very hard thing to accomplish. We could almost say that any person wishing to learn a language online automatically goes through Duolingo. It's an amazing thing to accomplish. You automatically transition through Duolingo, and doing otherwise would be like watching smart TV without knowing what Netflix is, or cheating in school without using ChatGPT. Almost impossible. What I believe happened when they initially created Duolingo, it's my belief, is that they didn't first start the language program. They didn't first start with a language program. I think they rather went the other way round. I think they went from the destination backwards. The destination, of course, is the human being who would be using the learning program. And I think they asked themselves a series of questions to guarantee the success of their program. And they asked, well, how do humans behave? How do humans usually interpret reality? What does a human being actually want from life? And in this lies the genius. I'm calling them genius, Duolingo. And they are in fact so far ahead of the curve that it took me years to understand what was going on. And like other people involved in the profession of teaching, I used to call them the McDonald's of teaching. And that's because I was too ignorant, and I admit it, I was too ignorant to see what was actually happening. And it's a bit of a passive-aggressive statement, I realise that, but it's the truth. I was absolutely too ignorant to understand what was happening. I thought they were the lowest level of education that you could ever find, but I was completely missing the point. I was missing the point. They were very, very far ahead of the curve. And so I really don't mean this in an aggressive way. I don't mean it aggressively, but I do believe that languages are just a byproduct of Duolingo. I think the actual product is something else. It's an activity that brings satisfaction, an online activity that brings satisfaction, it brings peace of mind, and it brings joy. And it's something that plays in tune with the human psychology, which they happen to know as experts. So it works in tune with human psychology, which Duolingo know very, very well, because they are absolutely very clever people. And I think that to properly understand the appeal of Duolingo, I think we have to try to understand the role of symbolism in our processing of reality as human beings. I think the complexity of human thinking plays tricks on us in how we name things and how we interpret them. We can take an easy example of going to the gym. In the beginning, at least, they use the machines diligently, they get a good sweat in, and they track their progress. And we could say that the action of going to the gym is stripped to the essentials. The gym goer goes to the gym for its intended purpose and builds muscle. But as time goes by, the gym goer makes new associations with the fact of going to the gym. They start to associate it with fun, with relaxation, with friends, socializing, getting away from the kids, being alone for a while. And this is when going to the gym becomes a symbol. You're performing the symbol of going to the gym. You're not you are physically at the gym. You're using the weights and things, but it's just you're performing it's a symbol, right? It's lost its initial definition. It's been replaced by, the word is still the same, but the definition that's attached to going to the gym has changed. And my point is that human beings are capable of doing this very easily, and we do it very often. We need look no further than TV advertising. They don't sell the thing, they sell the idea that's associated with the thing. And just yesterday, this is a true story, I saw an advertisement on TV. We were watching the NBA, and there was an advertisement for Chrysler, for Chrysler cars, and they said during the ad that their car helped to bring happiness into our life. And my wife was upstairs, and she came down. I told her, hey, guess what this car can do? You'll never guess what this car does. No, it doesn't get you from A to B. It's not about the wheels. It's not about driving somewhere. You know what it does? Well, this car helps to bring happiness in your life. So in other words, if you don't have enough happiness, you buy a Chrysler and you'll have a bit more happiness in your life. And that's what it does. It helps. It doesn't bring all the happiness into your life, but it helps to bring some happiness into your life. That was the actual slogan that Chrysler used during the advertisement, and this illustrates we do it all the time. It's just the way we process reality as human beings. And the same thing goes for going to school. On most days, going to school is equally just a symbol for education. And I'm sure we all know this. I'm not teaching you anything. Whether the exact definition of school is understood and applied is not important to the way the kids use it. Right? Going to school doesn't always mean learning. You just go to school. Whatever you do in school is something different. We might consciously know that learning does not take place every hour of the day, but it doesn't matter. It's still called going to school. It's a symbol that we are happy to accept. And all this leads me to speaking about the genius of Duolingo, because I do mean genius. I think that the genius of Duolingo is in understanding all these traits of human psychology much better than I ever could, and exploiting them to a T. And I don't claim I know how they did it, but I feel I understand at least the principle of it. I strongly suspect, I'm not claiming, but I strongly suspect that the brains behind Duolingo knew very well how it would play out. They had an understanding that the last thing most people ever want to do is to make an effort. And they also knew that if they mixed fun with quote-unquote learning, it wouldn't really matter if actual learning took place. And this is because they knew that the minds of their customers would do the rest. They would be quite happy to apply the symbol of learning to the name Duolingo. I don't know if I'm being clear with this. So instead of racking their minds to find the best way to teach languages, which I initially thought was the business they were into, I think that Duolingo had the far superior intellect and common sense to say, hang on, this makes no sense. The consumer doesn't really want to get good at languages. They want to be comfortable, they want to have fun, and are very happy to engage in the symbol of learning. Why would we ever waste our time and energy to try to shove languages down their throats? It makes absolutely no sense, and they were right. It makes no sense. And this is the reason I believe they proceeded backwards. They went from the customer backwards. They didn't first create a language program and hope that it would please customers. I really do think they did it the other way around. And I think they asked themselves, well, a series of questions before they even created Duolingo, because they are very, very, very clever people. I'll say it again and again. And they asked themselves questions such as, well, do humans want to learn languages? Yeah, it's a cool thing. Yeah, they want to learn languages. Good. Well, we've got a product. We've got a product that people want. That's the first thing. It's a good thing, a good business to be in. Number two, well, do humans want to make efforts and suffer? No, they don't want to do that. Number three, is the human brain capable of applying the symbol of learning to an empty definition? Yeah, humans do it all the time, as we just saw with going to the gym, going to school, going to work, being married, anything. Yeah, it can remain a symbol and you apply a different definition to it. Number four, they might have asked themselves, well, does it actually matter if learning takes place on the language learning platform? No, humans aren't like that. They won't mind if no language learning ever happens. And number five, they probably asked themselves, can we find a crafty way of putting all these things into a language platform? Yeah, we can do it. Yeah, we're clever. We are genius level clever. Yeah, we can do all these things. I'm not saying I know for sure, but I do believe that they considered many similar psychological factors as pertains the human mind. I believe they thought along these lines before they even built the platform, and they went from the consumer backwards, and this is the way they built Duolingo. And I say it's absolutely so brilliant on so many levels that we could pick this apart for hours, because this is just a brief summary of what I believe it happened or is happening with Duolingo. And to be quite clear, I know that I'm in the business of teaching languages also, but it's not a case of sour grapes before anyone comments and says, look at him over there, Chris, being jealous. No, it's not that, because there's really nothing wrong with enjoying Duolingo. I did it myself, and they have not done anything that any other big advertising company hasn't already done. That's how advertising works. I mentioned Chrysler a second ago. They play on the weakness of human psychology, because we all have it, this weakness, and they propose new mental associations, just as Nescafe means sexy, Coca-Cola means young, Disney means dreaming. Well, Duolingo means learning. You can associate any idea with whatever you want. And that's the genius of it. They just associated their name with learning. And, Coca-Cola isn't liquid sugar. It's a drink that makes you young and happy. These are associations, and advertising has done it forever. There's nothing wrong with it. I myself used it for Danish, and I might still use it in the future. I don't know. In all honesty, I found the experience to be quite pleasurable. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Chris. See you again in the next video. Don't forget to comment and tell me how you've managed to learn 14 languages with Duolingo, that you're now perfectly fluent and I'm completely wrong. Or on the contrary, tell me how you have absolutely wasted your time. I'm interested in it all. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.